You are watching Joseph TV show.
I'm an immigrant who came to this country with just $20 in my pocket. The United States has given me so much. I love America, and I will do anything to protect our Constitution and our democratic values. Donald J. Trump has been committing crimes since day one: bribery, corruption, taking power from Congress, creating an unlawful office in DOGE, violating First Amendment rights, ignoring due process, and finally refusing to abide by a unanimous Supreme Court ruling.
I want to tell you exactly what is in their proposed bill so that we know how to fight it. Are you ready? Now, the first thing I want to make totally clear is that if you hear a Republican say, like, oh, these are just modest cuts, we're just chipping away at the edges. No, they're not. These cuts, if they went through, would be the largest cuts to Medicaid in the history of the program. The largest cuts ever. People will literally die because of them. They are benefit cuts. And even worse, they are benefit cuts that are unnecessary except to pay for tax cuts for people who totally don't need them. So the CBO, which is the Congressional Budget Office, they are a nonpartisan division that sort of figures out how much things are going to cost, says that this is going to come out to about $715 billion in cuts to Medicaid. The CBO also reported that as a result of these budget cuts, about 8.6 million people in America will lose their health insurance. Just to be clear, 8.6 million people is the population of all of these states combined. It actually gets a little worse than that, though, because in this bill, Republicans also have the chance to extend the tax credits that helped people afford their Affordable Care Act health insurance premiums. Republicans are declining to extend those, and because of that, 5 million more people will lose their health insurance. To put that in some kind of perspective, that's the state of Alabama's entire population. On top of the 5 million people who will lose their insurance because of these ACA credits going away, another 20 million are going to see their premiums go up by an average of $700. So one of the big ways that Republicans want to cut Medicaid spending in this bill is by instituting work requirements, which in theory sounds good, except that almost everybody on Medicaid already works. And those who don't have really good reason for not doing so, like their caretakers. Also, we know that work requirement simply ties people up in paperwork and ends up pushing a lot of people off the rolls who should be on. In fact, the state of Arkansas tried it, and 18,000 people lost their health insurance. Another way they want to lower costs is to tell states how they can and cannot spend their Medicaid dollars. For example, no undocumented children can have coverage. Republicans' plan also calls for an increase in cost sharing. What that means is you will pay higher copays, probably significantly higher. And there's so much more. This is just a small sampling of the cuts that are in this package. It's bad. Republicans are going to try to justify all of these benefit cuts by talking about waste, fraud, and abuse. They're going to use that phrase just as much as Elon Musk did, and similar to him, it is to cover up self-dealing motives. Obviously, nobody wants waste, fraud, or abuse. That's not what this is about. These cuts go so far beyond what any conceivable waste, fraud, or abuse could be. These are cuts. These are slashing Medicaid programs so rich people can get tax cuts. One final thing is, lest you think, oh, well, I'm going to get a tax cut too, and that's going to benefit me. Did you know that 70% of the tax cuts in this package will benefit the top 5% of earners, and the bottom 40% of earners will actually see their taxes go up? And you add in all the ways that your life is about to get more expensive because of these cuts. You're going to be paying about $4,000 more a year than you were before. And I'm going to finish by just saying this. Gutting these programs, Medicaid, SNAP, Head Start, the rest of them, this is not necessary. All of these cuts could be avoided. All of them. If we just let Donald Trump's tax cuts from 2017 expire. And if anybody tells you that these cuts are about fiscal responsibility, that's absolute baloney. This is going to skyrocket the deficit. People are saying likely by $4 to $5 trillion. This literally is a scam. It is a wealth transfer from working Americans and poor people to rich people, and it will make millions of Americans suffer horribly. So call your representatives, especially if they're Republican, and tell them hell no. Because healthcare is a human right, and any lawmaker who disagrees should lose their job.
Ethnic cleansing in Gaza is not a joke, especially when it emanates from the President of the United States, the most powerful person in the world, when he has the ability to perfect what he says. Ethnic cleansing in Gaza is no joke, and the Prime Minister of Israel should be ashamed, knowing the history of his people, to stand there and allow such things to be said. Ethnic cleansing has been a crime against humanity. And I stand here today in the well to denounce what was said, to denounce what the president said, to denounce the complicity of the Prime Minister of Israel, and to remind people that Dr. King was right. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And injustice in Gaza is a threat to justice in the United States of America. I rise to announce that the movement to impeach the president has begun. I rise to announce that I will bring articles of impeachment against the president for dastardly deeds proposed and dastardly deeds done. I also rise to say that the impeachment movement is going to be a grass-up movement, not a top-down. The people have got to move forward. The people have to demand it. And when the people demand it, it will be done. I did it before. I laid the foundation for impeachment, and it was done. Nobody knows more about it than I. And I know that it's time for us to lay the foundation again. On some issues, it is better to stand alone than not stand at all. On this issue, I stand alone, but I stand for justice.
But defying a unanimous 9-0 Supreme Court ruling, that has to be the final straw. It's time we impeach Donald J. Trump. The court said the wrongfully deported Kilmer Garcia must be allowed to return and receive due process. Trump ignored it. He ignored the Constitution. He ignored the very checks and balances that keep our democracy intact. This isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a dangerous, deliberate pattern. That's why today I introduced a resolution to impeach Donald J. Trump, outlining 7 articles of impeachment. Article 1, obstruction of justice and abuse of executive power. From denying due process to unlawful deportations, Trump defied court orders. Article 2, taking away Congress's power of the purse. Trump dismantled agencies and froze funds without permission from Congress. Article 3, abuse of trade powers and international aggression. He imposed damaging tariffs and threatened military invasions of our allies. Article 4, violation of First Amendment rights. He has retaliated against journalists, attorneys, and critics for exercising their right to free speech. Article 5, creation of an unlawful office establishing the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, and giving Elon Musk unconstitutional power over our government and personal data. Article 6, bribery and corruption. He has dismissed criminal cases and solicited payments from foreign governments and coerced legal settlements for personal and political gain. Article 7, tyrannical overreach. Finally, and most importantly, he is attempting to consolidate unchecked power and erode the constitutional limits of the presidency. In this country, we have presidents, not kings. That's not just misconduct, it's impeachable misconduct. This isn't leadership, it's tyranny. If we let this stand, we are saying the president is above the law, that the United States Constitution is optional. I won't be silent, and I'm calling on all my colleagues, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents, to stand up with me. Enough is enough. Donald J. Trump must be impeached.
Biggest payoff in history. And because he is the stupidest president in history, he agreed to that payoff from a Hamas-supporting dictator publicly. And to double underline his stupidity, he publicly said that only a stupid person, that was actually his phrase, a stupid person, would refuse to take the biggest payoff in history from a Hamas-supporting dictator. No one in the world was...
Folks, enough is enough. For the third time in our nation's history, Donald Trump faces articles of impeachment because he's still a clear and present danger to our Constitution. He's abused his power, defied our courts, violated the First Amendment and sold out our justice system for his own political gain. And he's deporting Americans with no due process and cozying up to billionaires like Elon Musk while stripping power from Congress. That's not leadership, that's tyranny. And let me be clear, silence from Congress is complicity. I'm running for Congress because we must draw the line. If Trump can violate the law with impunity, then democracy dies. It's time to stop being afraid of his base and start standing up for our country. I will not back down, and I will not sell out. Let's defend the Constitution. Let's impeach Donald Trump, and let's take back our democracy together. My name is Doug Hune, and I'm a Democrat, congressional candidate in California's 3rd District. Please share this video, follow me, and donate to my congressional campaign. Link is down below and also my profile. Thank you so much for your support.
Impeaching Donald Trump is not the answer. Impeachment in general is not the answer, and here's why. Let's assume that you did manage to impeach Trump. Who's going to take his place? J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is owned by the oligarchs. He is the front man for the oligarchy. He believes that he is a true believer and wants to change how this country is governed. He does not believe in the Constitution. He wants a dictatorship by corporations. So let's say we impeach J.D. Vance then. Who does that give us? It gives us Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson, a Christo-fascist who would instill a proper state religion for everybody. Mike Johnson, who is somewhat overly concerned with gay people, and I don't know why. So let's say we get rid of Trump, and then we get rid of Vance, and then we get rid of Johnson. That's a hell of a lot of work for the Congress. You generally can't agree on what time of day it is. But let's say they do manage to do that. Who does that leave you with? That leaves you with Chuck Grassley. Chuck Grassley, 90-some years old, Chuck Grassley, as President of the United States. We want to talk about how Biden was incompetent or how Trump was incompetent. My God, Grassley's been there since before, well, hell, it was grass. So let's say impeachment's not the answer. Now, to be honest, impeachment is literally controlled by 25 people. Assuming that all the Democrats voted to throw these guys out every time, right now, given the way the House is structured, the number of Republicans versus Democrats, say five Republicans would have to cross over. And in the Senate, let's say all the Democrats vote, so maximum, let's say 20 Republicans cross over. But that's not going to happen because those guys are basically concerned about lining their pockets. They agree with Trump's policies. They agree with Johnson and with Vance. Some of them really do want to destroy the country. Some of them are just out to instill a religion. And some of them are just there to line their pockets. I know my particular state or congressman, Andy Barr, he's the greediest bastard I've ever seen. And that's what his purpose is. He doesn't have any moral conviction. He's not a Christo-fascist. And he's not a corporate zealot. But he will be if you give him enough money. And that's the problem. The problem is 25 people have no morals. They would rather put party, put their own pocketbook, put their own position of power ahead of what is right for the country. And they will continue to do that. So impeachment in general is not the answer. It will not be, it will not work. Now, I know that if the House flips to Democratic in the midterm elections, that the Democrats will probably press impeachment, and we will go through the charade of it going to the Senate, where it will not come up with 60 votes. But it's just an exercise, people. So we need to look at longer term. You need to look at your local senators and your local congressmen. Are these guys actually doing the job, or are they just there getting rich and pushing an agenda that you hate and it is not for you? That's what you need to focus on, and not impeachment.
What the hell's going on in our country? What is going on? I'm trying to just get a big, huge project done. And I check the news, and I live outside of San Antonio, and the Qatar jet is sitting in San Antonio to be retrofitted as Air Force One. A full-on violation of the Emoluments Clause. We've also got some white South Africans that are being sent to our country, and people that are immigrants that are not white are being sent out. We've got ICE agents all over the place raiding and arresting people for what God only knows. And this guy is still president. Somebody explain this shit to me. What the hell's going on in our country?
The news is being dominated right now by Trump's acceptance of this $400 million airplane from the government of Qatar. Trump and his administration are really dancing around how to make this thing legal. Now, the more the news looks into this, the harder it's looking like they're going to find a scenario where it can be legal. But let's look back to April 30th, when the Trump family struck a deal to build a $5.5 million oceanside luxury golf resort in Qatar. This in itself is a violation of the Emoluments Clause, and it's very concerning. When we dig into who's involved with this, we found it's going to be built by a Saudi Arabian partner called Dar Global and by a Qatari company called Qatari DR. It's owned by the Qatari government. So Trump struck a deal to build a resort with his name on it with the Qatari government. Fast forward to just a week and a half later, like now, and the Qatari government is gifting Donald Trump a fancy luxury airliner jet that he can use for Air Force One. Now, Trump isn't running the business, his son Eric is, but he's trying to say that the deal is with the Saudi firm and not the Qatari one. That raises a lot of eyebrows. Why is Eric Trump now backtracking on this? Donald Trump is trying to skirt around the Constitution and the Emoluments Clause by having Qatar gift this jet to the Department of Defense, which he says will later gift it to his presidential library once he's out of office. So basically to himself. I thought the corruption with this meme coin was bad, but this just takes it to an entirely new level. What further complicates all this is we are learning now that Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, was actually a lobbyist for Qatar from 2020 to 2022, where they were paying her $112,000 a month. This is information she did not disclose to Congress before her confirmation hearings. This whole thing stinks to high heaven, and this administration cannot be trusted with anything. More than likely, a gift like this would have to be approved by Congress because it's such a large amount. But I think there's enough information out there now showing how close this administration is with Qatar to stop it in its tracks. The news is being dominated right now.
Ethnic cleansing in Gaza is not a joke, especially when it emanates from the President of the United States, the most powerful person in the world, when he has the ability to perfect what he says. Ethnic cleansing in Gaza is no joke, and the Prime Minister of Israel should be ashamed, knowing the history of his people, to stand there and allow such things to be said. Ethnic cleansing has been a crime against humanity. And I stand here today in the well to denounce what was said, to denounce what the president said, to denounce the complicity of the Prime Minister of Israel, and to remind people that Dr. King was right. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And injustice in Gaza is a threat to justice in the United States of America. I rise to announce that the movement to impeach the president has begun. I rise to announce that I will bring articles of impeachment against the president for dastardly deeds proposed and dastardly deeds done. I also rise to say that the impeachment movement is going to be a grass-up movement, not a top-down. The people have got to move forward. The people have to demand it. And when the people demand it, it will be done. I did it before. I laid the foundation for impeachment, and it was done. Nobody knows more about it than I. And I know that it's time for us to lay the foundation again. On some issues, it is better to stand alone than not stand at all. On this issue, I stand alone, but I stand for justice.